Thank y'all very, very much, and thank you so much for having me. Folks, I want to tell you what I think this election is all about. It is all about saving the American dream and the idea of America. Look, every time President Obama speaks, it's all about redistribution. It's all about government spending. It's all about government dependence. I don't know about you, but that is not the American dream that our parents taught us. I want to briefly tell you my parents' story and then tell you what we have got to do to fight and save the American dream. You know, my parents, they have lived the American dream. My dad is one of 9 children. First and the only one in the family to get past the 5th grade. Grew up in a house without electricity, without running water. Now I know because we heard those stories every single day growing up. But here is the amazing thing. Over 40, almost 45 years ago, the first time my parents got on a plane, they came halfway across the world to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Now, they had never visited. They didn't know anybody who had been here and gone back and could tell them what it was like. And yet they left their families, their friends. My mom was pregnant with me. I tried to explain to my kids, you couldn't Google back then. There was no online. They were coming to an idea as much as they were coming to a place. They were coming to the idea of freedom and opportunity. They were coming to the American dream. Now when they got here, my mom went to school at LSU. My dad, that's right. Go Tigers. My dad, now he didn't come here to be dependent on the government. He came here to get a job. Got his first job calling through the Yellow Pages. 6 months later, I was born. I was what you would politely call a pre-existing condition when I was born. Now there was no Obamacare, there was no government contracts or reforms. I love what my dad did next. He went to the doctor, shook his hand, and promised to send him a check every month until he paid that bill in full. And that's exactly what he did. That's what we used to do in this country. Now I asked my dad, how does it work to pay for a baby on layaway? I mean, if you skip a payment, do they take the baby back? He said, you were such a bad little baby, we would have sent you back. The reason I tell you that story, my parents came here to chase the American dream. They caught the American dream. They lived the American dream. I want my children and grandchildren to live that same dream. And while I'm talking about my parents, I might as well go ahead and say this as well. When my parents came to this country, they came to this country legally when they came to this country. Now, folks, an immigration policy can either make a country stronger or weaker. A dumb immigration policy makes a country weaker, and that is what we've got today. It is clear to me, we need to stop talking about it. We don't need a 1,000-page bill. We don't need a comprehensive approach. It is time to secure the border once and for all. Now look, we could get it done in 6 months if we were serious. But look, the reality is you got big business interests in D.C. that don't want the border secure. They want amnesty. They pay for protesters. They try to silence free speech. I'm here to tell you, we are going to stand up to the big business interests. We don't care. The big businesses can buy as many t-shirts and banners as they want. We are going to secure our border. We are a nation of laws. The Republican Party is not the party of big government. We should not become the party of big business either. And let me tell you this. It is time to put an end to sanctuary cities. It's fine. The Congress wants to defund them. Let's do more. I've got a partners in crime package. Let's hold those mayors and city councilmen criminally responsible as accessories for the crimes committed by people who shouldn't be here in the first place. Let's lock them up. Look, the left, they don't want us to be a melting pot. Here's the ridiculous thing. They think that it's politically incorrect to say if you want to come here, you should want to be an American. I'm here to tell you that folks that want to come here, if you want to come to our country, come legally. Learn English. Yes! Adopt our values, and when you get here, roll up your sleeves and get to work. Yeah! I don't know about you, but I'm tired of the hyphenated Americans. We are not African Americans. We're not Asian Americans. We're not rich Americans. We're not poor Americans. We're all Americans. And it's time to stand up to this nonsense. The divider-in-chief does not want us. He wants us to continue. The left says it is politically incorrect. I think it is foolish. If you want to come to this country, you should want to be an American. If you don't want to be an American, don't come here. Nobody is forcing them to come here in the first place. Let's be clear. Let's be clear. Immigration without assimilation. Immigration without integration. That's not immigration. Immigration without assimilation is invasion, and we must not let that happen in America. You want to see the contrast? See what is happening in Europe. Second, third generation immigrants that don't consider themselves parts of those countries. We must not let that happen in America. And by the way, we shouldn't give anybody freedoms to come here and use those freedoms to undermine the freedoms for other people. It is time for America to have a smart immigration policy. It's time for us to say, if you want to come here, be an American, learn the language, adopt our values, and get to work. And again, the big business interests, they can send them on as many junkets as they want. They can try to interrupt as many speeches as they want. They can buy as many t-shirts as they want. It is time to stand up to big businesses and say, we're taking our country back. That gets me to my next point. As Republicans, as conservatives, we've got to do something different. It is time for us to embrace our own principles. Now, what do I mean by that? You heard Jeb Bush say that we've got to be willing to lose the primary in order to win the general election. Well, folks, I disagree with that. Let me translate that for you. That is the establishment telling us to hide our beliefs, telling us to try to get the left and the media to like us again. I'm here to tell you that never works. If we do that again, we will lose again, and we will deserve to lose again. It is time for us to embrace our own principles. You know, when did the conservatives decide to give up fighting for our beliefs? When did we decide to quit on the American dream? Conservatism is not dead in America. It is simply dead in Washington, D.C. It is time for us to stand up to the permanent political insiders. They took the majority last year. What changed in D.C.? Nothing. They told us they would fight amnesty. They told us they would repeal Obamacare. Nothing is changed. The reality is the leaders in D.C., they were happy the Supreme Court ruled against us on Obamacare. They're afraid of winning. Only in D.C. is losing a good thing. I'm here to tell you this. They are scared to fight for freedom. They are scared to fight against a new government entitlement. We can't afford what we've got. They're afraid to fight against universal coverage. They're afraid to fight for less government dependence. It is time for us to stand up and take our party back. We need to force term limits down their throats. It is time for us to put an end to this nonsense of career, lifetime, permanent politicians. Let's take America back. Think how different our country would be if they had to live under the same rules they applied to the rest of us. It is time for us to get part-time, term-limited legislators, and let's pay them for every day they stay out of D.C. rather than every day they go to D.C. We need to shrink our government. Now, folks, I want to say something that is politically incorrect. The idea of America is slipping away. The idea of America is slipping away right in front of us. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that many Americans are tempted to take America for granted. My parents would never take America for granted. Every day they give thanks. They were blessed to be born in the greatest country in the history of the world. But look at what we're seeing. Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, they're trying to turn the American dream into the European nightmare. Give Bernie Sanders credit. At least he's honest enough to call himself a socialist. These other two aren't any better. They just won't admit it. But the idea of America is slipping away from us. $18 trillion of debt. Planned Parenthood using our taxpayer dollars to tear apart babies and sell their organs across this country. Our government creating an entitlement program we can't afford the ones we've got today. Our president who's made war on trans fats and a truce on Iran, the greatest sponsor of terrorism in the world. Our president who's so politically correct, he can't even say the words radical Islamic terrorism. How is he going to beat our enemies if he can't even define our enemies? Our president who won't stand with Israel. Our president who time and time again grows government. He's got the EPA regulating the water in our backyard. We've got now a bigger, more expansive, more expensive, more intrusive federal government than ever before. The idea of America is slipping away. And that is why it is time for us to stand up and take it back. I don't know about you, I'm not going to let the idea of America slip away as long as I've got breath. I will do everything I can to get the idea of America back. The idea of America has generated more wealth than any other civilization in the history of the world. It has done more for freedom than any other civilization in the history of the world. It has done more to fight for the defenseless than any other civilization in the history of the world. We must not let it slip away. Shame on those fools in D.C. who are giving it away. Shame on us if we allow them to do that. I'm here to tell you, there are a lot of great speakers running for president. You got a lot of folks. And look, I'm not the best looking candidate. My daddy wasn't president. I don't have a reality TV show. But I've got the backbone, I've got the bandwidth, I've got the experience to get this job done. And I'll be ready on the first day. We can't afford. The next commander-in-chief will be across the table from a Putin or from an Ayatollah. He better not need a teleprompter, talking points, or a great staff. We need a president who can do this job on the first day. I'm asking you to believe again. I'm asking you to fight with me with God's grace. We can rescue the idea of America before it slips away. But we cannot waste a minute. I'm asking you to believe again today and to join up today. Not tomorrow, not next week, not next month. And I'll say in closing, those folks sent out here by the big business interests, the folks that want open borders and amnesty, if you want freedom, follow the laws. Do what my parents did. We are the greatest country in the history of the world. But look, they can be excused. We've got a president who doesn't follow the law. The Supreme Court that doesn't follow the Constitution. We've got Hillary Clinton that thinks the laws don't apply to her. So no wonder they think the laws don't apply to them. If you want freedom, if you love America, follow the laws, learn English, adopt our values, and get to work. God bless y'all. And thank y'all very much. All right, we got time for questions. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Governor. What is your plan to fight safe, reliable, affordable electricity?
Safe, reliable, affordable electricity. Look, we've got to do all of the above. This president wants energy to be scarce and expensive. We got to have solar, we got to have ethanol, we got to have wind, we got to have oil, we got to have gas, we have to have clean coal, we have to have nuclear, we have to have it all, and we got to get the EPA out of the way. Let's be honest, they want energy to be scarce and expensive, so we're dependent on government. He bragged in his State of the Union about increasing oil and gas production. It's like the rooster taking credit for the sun coming up. Production is going down on federal lands and waters, up on private lands and waters. We need affordable energy. We can start by getting the EPA out of the way. Yes?
How do you create more good jobs? How do you define good jobs?
Good jobs are jobs that pay well, that offer benefits. The way you create more good jobs, we can't have the highest tax rate in the world. Got to lower the tax rate. Secondly, you got to shrink the government. Look, you either grow the government economy or the American economy. They're mutually exclusive. Every Republican talks about cutting government. I'm the only one that has done it. There's not two, there is one. I've cut my budget 26%. We've got 30,000 fewer state bureaucrats than the day I took office. Third, you've got to have affordable energy. I've got an energy independence plan. Not only do you bring exploration jobs, you bring manufacturing jobs back as well. We also need to repeal Obamacare, all the uncertainty and the regulations that are getting in the way of hiring and expanding. Finally, we've got to roll back this regulatory state. You know, they don't even do cost-benefit analyses when they do these regulations. Congress needs to do its job. It needs to vote on these regulations before these unelected bureaucrats strangle our economy. Folks, we can still dominate this century, but we got to get government out of the way if we want to create good-paying jobs. Yes, sir. A great question about the rising influence of Russia and China. What can we do to maintain our influence? We've got to stop hollowing out our military. Look, this president thinks weakness is the key to peace. Weakness is provocative to evil. It never works. You've got Putin in eastern Ukraine. You've got China ascendant in Asia. You've got ISIS across the Middle East because he has hollowed out our military and tried to retreat from the world. Reagan understood peace through strength actually works. I never want our military in a fair fight. I want our military to dominate any fight we ever send them into. And it is unfair to send them into a fight without the resources they need. Yes, sir. The question was, how do we spread the Republican message to youth? Look, I think a lot of young people, two things I would ask any voter, but especially our young voters. One, are you really better off than before President Obama got elected? Your premiums didn't go down $2,500. Those good-paying jobs he promised didn't materialize. All the things he said the world would be safer. Now he's telling us he can't beat ISIS in a generation. It'll be a generational conflict. So the first question asked is, are you really better off? And then secondly, I'd say, who is smarter? Who knows better how to run your life? You or the government? The left thinks you're not smart enough to buy your own insurance. They don't think you're smart enough to have First Amendment religious liberty rights. They don't think you're smart enough to have Second Amendment gun rights. They don't think you're smart enough to decide how your kids should be educated. They don't think you're smart enough to spend your own money. They don't think you're smart enough, if you live in New York, to be able to know how many big gulps you should be drinking. And by the way, I suspect Michelle Obama would have a heart attack based on all the food we're going to have to eat. So I would ask, who do you trust to live your lives, you or the government? And I will say this to the president. I will defend my children from microwave popcorn, Oreos, and deep-fried candy bars if he will do his job as commander-in-chief and defend us from radical Islamic terrorists.
Do you think that employers should be able to fire an employee based on their sexual orientation?
I think I heard the question. Look, I'm not for discrimination against anybody, but I also don't think the government should be intruding on the matters. Like right now, what I worry about is you've got an all-out assault against Christian business owners. I think there are Christian florists, I think there are Christian musicians and caterers that are being forced to choose between following their conscience and being able to operate their business. The real discrimination we see today are against individuals that want to continue believing marriage being between a man and a woman. As a Christian, I don't think a court can redefine the definition of marriage. I think I signed an executive order in Louisiana saying we won't discriminate against business owners or individuals who have a traditional view of marriage. Now the ACLU is suing us. I think that's hypocritical. They were for religious freedom before they were against it. So look, I think we're all created equal in God's eyes. I'm not for discrimination. I think the discrimination that's happening today is against Christian business owners and individuals that want to follow their conscience. Yes, sir. Yeah, so I was speaking, look, the question was, I was here, it was actually a couple of days after I announced for president. I was in Iowa. They came out with their decision on marriage. The same week they came out with the decision on marriage, on Obamacare. And I was asked by a reporter, what should we do about the court? And I said pretty glibly, I'll be honest, look, I say what I think whenever I'm asked. I said, well, look, if the court can't be bothered to read the Constitution, according to Scalia, that words no longer have meanings. They can't read a dictionary. I said if they're going to become a public opinion poll instead of following the Constitution, maybe we could save a couple of bucks and get rid of the court altogether. And I know the left didn't like that. Hillary came here and attacked that. So I've been willing, in the spirit of compromise, I'm willing just to get rid of 2/3 of the court and keep 3 of them. Because there are 3 of them that actually follow the Constitution. I'm sorry, this is the last question. Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you. She said a lot of the people she works with says every politician's a liar, and she says the question is, well, one of them's got to be a good one. She's asked me, am I a good one? Let me say this. I think that there's a reason the folks you talk about say every politician's a liar. We are tired of politicians that say one thing and do another. Just once, I'd like them to fight for what they believe in. They've got an opportunity now. Look, they rolled over on amnesty. They've rolled over on Obamacare in D.C. They better take a stand against funding Planned Parenthood. How in the world can our tax dollars go for these barbaric activities? And so I think there is rightful skepticism. I think the best thing I can tell you about me is I do what I say. Now, look, not everybody here likes it. I said I'm going to support the rule of law. They clearly don't like it. I've said I was going to cut my state government without raising taxes. Clearly, we've done it. And so I've said that I'm standing in support of religious liberty and traditional marriage. We've got a woman here that disagrees with that as well. So the best thing I can tell you about me, I will tell you what I believe, I will do what I say, and I am willing to give everything I've got to fight to protect the idea of America. Folks, if you're looking for something to manage the slow decline of this country, go vote for somebody else. If you want somebody that's going to fight to save the idea of America, to rescue the American dream from becoming the European nightmare, to take us off the path to socialism, believe again. Go to BobbyJindal.com. We are building a movement. We're going to win Iowa. We're going to win in the national election. We're going to take our country back, and we're going to secure our border and enforce our laws. God bless you.